Boeing is in serious trouble. They had that door panel blowout on the Alaskan Airlines flight back in January, and that triggered a 6-week audit by the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, to review the Boeing manufacturing process for making aircraft. And you know what they found? They produced a 50-page paper report showing 27 areas where Boeing's safety record and safety procedures are insufficient. That's what the FAA came up with. We got a lot to talk about here. Not only that there's serious issues with the manufacturing of the aircraft, but also we're going to talk a little bit about is this potentially more than just the manufacturing issues? Is it potentially sabotage by foreign powers? Because there's some interesting things coming on right now. China has just launched their brand new international jet. And there's now more competition than ever, not just Airbus now, but also China has its own regional jet that is competing directly with Boeing. So we got a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and these are news items that you won't see discussed out there. You'll see little bits and pieces here and there of different stories, but you won't see the conversation about what's actually happening because they don't want to scare you. Now, full disclosure, I just flew from the United States on a my first leg from Pittsburgh to San Francisco. I pull out the safety card because you should probably pull out the safety card. I'll explain why in a moment. But I pull out the safety card and it said Boeing 737, I think it was like 8 MAX. And I was like, wait, isn't that the one with all the problems? It's like, oh, that's not good. I'm on the wrong kind of... And then I was also just looking up and they're like, you know, a lot of these safety issues seem to be happening on United Airlines. And I was like, I'm flying United on a Boeing 737 MAX. It's just like, United has had 15 safety incidents just in March. Yeah. They've had issues. They just had an issue where a bunch of people got injured due to turbulence. They've had issues they have not had a good month, and Boeing has not had a good year. But we're mostly talking about Boeing, not United. But United is a whole nother ball of wax where they say very clearly on their website that they want to get more people of color into the airline industry. They want to get more people from marginalized groups into the airline industry. We want to make it safer and more convenient for our passengers to fly, but rather we want to get more people of color into the industry. So you can just see where that one's going. So how many of these maintenance issues were caused by unqualified and unskilled people who just didn't know what in the world they were supposed to be doing. And since United flies a lot of Boeing aircraft, and a lot of the Boeing aircraft that have had issues were actually United flights, you have to ask yourself the question of, is this really totally a Boeing issue, or is this potentially a United Airlines issue? Now, the door panel that blew out was Alaskan Airlines, but apparently the issues that caused that were from the factory in Boeing. The Boeing factory, they went back to go find out who installed the door panel. You know what they found? They found that the video footage of that, because they record all the video footage of the construction of the aircrafts, they went back and looked at it, and they found that someone had overwritten it. Sort of like how Hillary Clinton did the bleach bit on her hard drive. Somebody had mistakenly overwrote. I wonder if it was a person of vibrancy in the cultural tapestry of the United States is why they decided to overwrite that information. Either that, or else they're just really bad at record keeping over at Boeing, that they just kind of decided to just not keep their records properly. Anyway, so in January they had a door panel that blew out on an Alaskan Airlines flight. They also had a tire fall off of a plane just after takeoff. Now that was United Airlines had that issue. Maybe they didn't tighten the bolts down, who knows what. But that was March 4th. They have a wheel fell off. And then they had flames coming from one of the engines just a couple days before that on March 4th. That was again United, of course. And this is the MAX, the 737 MAX. So if you're not familiar with the whole sordid tale of the MAX aircraft, basically they took the 737, they said, you know, let's just stick a bigger, more fuel-efficient engine on this aircraft so we don't have to redesign a new aircraft. Now, you can't just stick a bigger engine on an aircraft because you unbalance things. And you know what they decided? They were like, well, how about we just put the bigger engine on there and then we'll just fix it in the software code. It'll be unbalanced, but we'll basically tell the computer code to just adjust for the fact that it's unbalanced. So it's like basically always pitching a little bit. So it's always using the control surfaces to compensate for the fact that it actually has, it's unbalanced to the forward because the engines are kind of pulling the nose down. And so this software code update, when they brought out the aircraft in 2018, a little before 2018, but 2018 and 2019 they had crashes that were due to the code not working properly. So the code was there compensating, and then if the wrong sensors went out, then the code would just overcompensate and crash the aircraft into the ground, which is exactly what happened twice. And so the FAA's like, no, you need to design an aircraft so it actually can fly. You can't just take something off the shelf like a flying brick and just like slap some engines on it and be like, we're just going to code it into the software so that it can fly, which is exactly what they did. And, you know, they cut a whole bunch of corners in order to save a bunch of money, and they jeopardized, you know, hundreds of thousands of people's lives because they wanted to make some bucks. And that's exactly what they did. And so they had to take it off production, they had to fix the software coding, and they fixed a few other things that they kind of just forgot to fix when they were originally designing the aircraft. So they finally brought it back out to market in like 2020 or 2021. They brought it back out to market. And the airliners, they like it because it's relatively easy to maintain. The parts for most of the aircraft, it's basically a 737 with big engines slapped onto it. But the engines are relatively easy to maintain. The aircraft frames themselves are basically something that they're familiar with. And then on top of that, airliners like it because they're super efficient, right? So they burn less fuel, and so the like companies like United Airlines and others like the fact that it's nice and efficient. So that's all well and good. So the airliners, they don't really care about safety. I know they say it's their number one priority, but that's not exactly true. And we all know that. We all get that it's not number one priority. Saving money and making money is their number one priority. That's why they show up at work, is to make money. They don't show up and say, let's be safe. Well, just to be safe, let's just keep all the planes on the ground. Because that'd be the safest thing to do, right? You couldn't have a crash if all the planes are on the ground. But naturally, that isn't their number one priority. The number one priority is to make money and to take people where they want to go. And so the question is safety number 2 or is safety number like 6 on their priority list? And how often do they compromise other things in order to, do something else, like put somebody with a rich cultural heritage into a position of authority rather than putting, the person who's most competent in that place. And we see that airliners are doing that. We see Boeing has clearly done that. The FAA chief Whitaker said this. His impression from the Boeing factory was that they had issues with their safety culture, that they were prioritizing production over safety. Gee, what did I just say? Boeing clearly has issues. He went on to say some other things, basically like there wasn't a culture of being able to report safety issues. People who were on the production line and saw safety issues were reluctant to share those or to report those safety issues. Why? Because they feared retaliation. And there wasn't a structural process or procedure for them to report safety issues to higher ups so that they could be corrected. And even when there were some, they were afraid to do that because of retaliation. And that's one of the things that we see with the DEI culture is very much retaliation. It's about fixing past wrongs, and so if you're not on board fixing past wrongs, well, then you're part of present wrongs, and that's the whole culture of that. So you need to get on board, and if you question somebody who shouldn't be wrong, well, then you are really a cultural oppressor. And so that's all kind of baked into the whole situation. And so the fact that they're playing politics and playing all these games with our safety as we fly, I haven't flown too much for much. I mostly just fly Spirit Airlines to get down to Florida to go visit my parents. But flying overseas, I hopped on United, not thinking any differently, and also hopping on a Boeing 737 MAX without knowing any better. And that's not to say that 99.9% of these aircraft are going to be fine for now. But the thing is, what percentage is acceptable? And with airline travel, we expect the percentage of failure to be very, very low. And when there is failure, there's supposed to be redundancy in the system so that, the plane doesn't fall out of the sky. And that's what we expect from our aircraft, is that they can continue to fly even when the aircraft doesn't anymore have engine power. But these things are just basic things that we need in our aircraft. Now, the big news out there is that just over a month ago, the COMAC 919 did make its international debut. This is huge as well, that the fact that the COMAC 919 is going to be directly competing with the things like the Boeing 737 as well as the Airbus aircraft out there. This is a Chinese domestically made aircraft that is going to be challenging the dominant players, Boeing as well as Airbus out there. There really aren't too many others out there. Embraer has some aircraft, but they're mostly the real small stuff, the real regional kind of stuff, and that's Canadian, right? So there's only so many different companies out there that can actually build aircraft because they're extremely complicated, extremely you have to be very invested into building these things. So China is definitely trying to move into that market, and just as they suddenly have this aircraft coming out there, suddenly Boeing starts having all sorts of problems, which I say is highly, highly suspicious. I'm not saying that they're necessarily behind it, but it is definitely getting my radar up, seeing all these Boeing issues suddenly happening just as the Chinese COMAC 919 gets released and starting to be available for purchase by other countries. Now, China has already been ramping up its production domestically. Some of the domestic airlines already have the COMAC 919 out there, and they're going to continue to update that. As they see little issues, they're going to continue to adjust the production of that to make it more safe and more whatever, better for the airlines. And they're probably going to keep shrinking the seats as well, because that's what airlines do. Every time they update an aircraft, they squeeze a little more seats in there and less room for passengers. So Boeing has some serious issues. They may not all be self-incurred. It might be airlines like United not maintaining these aircraft properly, but they do have production issues, 27 safety issues where they are not up to snuff according to the FAA, and as Chief Whitaker says, they have prioritized production over safety. All right, folks, we'll keep an eye on that. You shouldn't be afraid to fly, but you may want to start thinking about avoiding United. You might want to start thinking about avoiding 737 Maxes, not, just out of an abundance of caution. All right, friends, thanks so much for joining us. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar, the Poplar Report, out.